The mother found guilty of allowing her boyfriend to batter to death her baby son. 13-month-old Noah died after suffering multiple fractures to his arms, legs and skull.
Please, can you hurry up and come? My son isn't breathing. He's been out of his cot and he's not breathing.
Ronnie Taylor Morrison tried to cover up the murder by her boyfriend, Hardeep Hunjan.
This relationship becomes more important to them than 13-month-old Noah, who becomes an inconvenience to them.
Also tonight, decision day for Hinkley. EDF agreed to back a new multi-billion-pound nuclear plant.
Thousands more jobs to go at Lloyds. The bank blames Brexit.
And all that jazz, the British swimmer hoping to hit the top notes in Rio.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale and Alistair Stewart.
Good evening. She was supposed to love and protect him, but the mother of Noah, Sarah Morrison, not only neglected her little boy, she allowed his murder at the hands of her violent partner. It was a crime of horrendous cruelty. The 13-month-old suffered numerous fractures and died from terrible head injuries.
Ronnie Taylor Morrison and her partner, Hardeep Hunjan, put their drug habit ahead of Noah's welfare and went to great lengths to cover up their crimes. Today, a court found Hunjan guilty of murder and convicted Taylor Morrison of allowing it to happen, as Nina Nana reports.
Oh yeah, you're liking the water, aren't you?
He beams at the camera, a happy little boy playing, with nothing here to suggest the extreme brutality which would bring Noah's life to an end when he was just 13 months old. And the shocking cruelty came from his own mother, here drinking from a child's Winnie the Pooh cup, and her partner in a relationship fuelled by drugs and alcohol.
Please, can you hurry up and come? My son isn't breathing. He's been out of his cot and he's not breathing.
But Noah Sarah Morrison hadn't fallen from his cot. His mother, Ronnie Taylor Morrison, waiting for more than an hour to make this call to paramedics. First, she looked up the term "my baby is hurt" on the internet. The court heard she and her partner, Hardeep Hunjan, had also tried to wash away forensic evidence. The truth was that her son had suffered a massive head injury and multiple fractures to his body, consistent with him being slammed against a wall or floor or swung around. Of the 24 fractures found on his body, 9 were inflicted in the last 6 weeks of his life. Just days after Noah's death, having repeatedly lied to the police, Taylor Morrison and Hunjan were caught on CCTV, shopping before boarding a coach to flee to Scotland.
It's the toxic relationship that these two coming together that has caused his death. It's a relationship which is fueled on drugs and cannabis taking, alcohol, abuse, some violence, and ultimately this relationship becomes more important to them than 13-month-old Noah, who becomes an inconvenience to them.
Today, Noah's father, who'd separated from Taylor Morrison 4 months before his son was murdered, was in court to hear the verdicts. In a statement he said, "Noah completed my life. He made life worth being here, worth waking up in the morning, and worth trying again and again even when I failed. I don't see a lot in my future without him." 27-year-old Hardeep Hunjan was found guilty of murder and cruelty. Noah's mother, 22-year-old Ronnie Taylor Morrison, was found not guilty of murder but convicted for cruelty and allowing her son's death. Both will be sentenced tomorrow. Nina Nana, ITV News.
After years of wrangling, the French energy firm EDF has agreed in the last hour to fund Britain's first new nuclear power station in a generation.
The plant at Hinkley will cost £18 billion and eventually provide 7% of Britain's electricity. But as our business editor Joel Hills reports, not all of EDF's executives are on board.
Hinkley Point, a stretch of Britain's nuclear coastline. On this site, Hinkley A, dead and long since decommissioned. Hinkley B, active but ageing. And Hinkley C, shovel-ready and now signed off.
This is the first new nuclear power station for 20 years or more than 20 years. So it's a big decision. It's a big power station. It will generate 7% of our electricity demand. So it is a big project, it is a lot of money. EDF are responsible for building it under the way the policy works. The consumer will not pay anything until it's generating electricity.
Hinkley C will take at least 9 years to build. The government wants it to be the first of a fleet of new nuclear power stations. Vital, we're told, to keep the lights on and lower our carbon emissions. Hinkley C will cost £18 billion, the most expensive nuclear plant ever built, but also one of the most advanced, generating 7% of the electricity Britain needs and powering 6 million homes. The government has guaranteed that consumers will pay EDF £92.50 for every unit of electricity Hinkley generates. That's more than double the current market price, and many say is too generous.
It's difficult to say that it's going to be a good deal for the UK consumer. At the moment, it looks like a very expensive way of delivering what the government wants us to deliver, which is reliable electricity at zero carbon.
Hinkley C will ultimately be paid for by British consumers, but until it's built, EDF shoulders the upfront costs and all of the risk. Get this project right and the company wins prestige and financial reward, but get it wrong and it could prove commercially disastrous. The technology is also unproven. EDF is building similar plants in France and Finland. They're behind schedule and over budget. This morning, another EDF board member resigned, calling Hinkley C very risky. The price tag is high and so are the stakes for the company and the British consumer. EDF's chief executive has been behind this project from the very start, but it has been controversial and he's clearly struggled to convince even his own executive team this is a good idea. It has been carried. Reports in France suggest the board voted 10-7 in favour. That's close. The British government won't mind, expect a decision imminently, but this is also a sign of the times. Almost 60 years ago, Britain built the first industrial-scale nuclear power station, the world's first, up in Cumbria. The next generation will be built, the first of them here in Somerset, with French know-how and a helping of Chinese investment. It is a sign of the times we live in.
Joel Hills in Somerset, thank you.
Another 3,000 jobs are being cut and 200 high street branches are to close in the latest round of cost-saving measures by Lloyds Bank. It blamed a shift to online banking and last month's Brexit vote. The bank's chief executive said growth would slow and a likely cut in interest rates would be a real challenge. Well, Duncan Golestani is at a branch in Kent that closed its doors today. Duncan.
This was the last bank in town, and that phrase, the last bank in town, is important because back in 2008, the big banks promised that they wouldn't close the last branch in a community. But that promise has been broken repeatedly. Increasingly across the UK, it's a case of there being no bank in town. At this Lloyds near Tunbridge Wells, staff served their last customer this afternoon with a sad goodbye. The doors were shut for good. Branches are not so important, the banks say, because more of us are going online. Not so, argue local campaigners.
Well, many people clearly are using internet facilities, but older people in general are not. Older people, even if they have access to the internet, and many of them don't feel comfortable with it. They want to go and physically see somebody and talk to somebody and pass their money across and get their money from somebody.
Lloyds was the last bank on the high street. Over the years, the others have left. Their customers did too. So for local businesses, it's a double hit. Nowhere nearby to bank their takings and less trade overall.
We see a dramatic decrease in people coming into the village because they're now using banks in either Tunbridge or Tunbridge Wells, and they're also using the facilities there. So unfortunately, the small village like us does tend to miss out. So that's our biggest fear.
2 years ago, Lloyds Bank announced it was cutting 9,000 jobs and shutting 200 branches as it tries to save £1.4 billion. So today's announcement takes the total number of job losses to 12,000 and total branch closures to 400 by the end of next year. Profits have doubled at Lloyds, but the bank warns uncertainty from Brexit could affect its future performance, a view dismissed by the unions.
Well, frankly, we think the statement from Lloyds that it's in some way linked to Brexit is disingenuous. This is cost-cutting, pure and simple, and the bank shouldn't be looking for other excuses to justify their actions.
The staff at this branch are being moved elsewhere. Many of their colleagues won't be so lucky. The idea of a local bank is fast fading. Duncan Golostani, ITV News, Southborough in Kent.
Angela Merkel's to change Germany's migrant policy following a series of terror attacks in the country. The Chancellor is standing by her decision to welcome in refugees who need help. But the German government is proposing new measures to improve security.
Meanwhile, large crowds have gathered at a vigil in Normandy tonight to pay tribute to Father Jacques Hamel, the priest murdered by Islamic State sympathisers. The 86-year-old has been remembered as a courageous man who dedicated his life to serving the church.
In the United States, President Obama rode into the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia overnight to deliver an impassioned endorsement of the woman he hopes will succeed him. He said Hillary Clinton was better qualified than anyone to be president. And he threw in a few choice words for good measure about her rival, Donald Trump. From the convention, Robert Moore reports.
You can greatly admire this president, or you can be disappointed by him. But few would deny the power of this moment. Barack Obama was passing the torch to a former rival, urging Americans to elect her as his successor.
There has never been a man or a woman, not me, not Bill, nobody, more qualified than Hillary Clinton to serve as President of the United States of America.
And he said that the incendiary language of Donald Trump would never defeat true American values.
That's why anyone who threatens our values, whether fascists or communists or jihadists or homegrown demagogues, will always fail in the end.
President Obama mocked Donald Trump and his slogan of making America great again.
America is already great. America is already strong. And I promise you, our strength, our greatness, does not depend on Donald Trump.
There was nostalgia too. Never again will he command a TV audience of tens of millions. So it was, in part, a farewell.
Time and again, you've picked me up. And I hope sometimes I picked you up too. The audacity of hope. America, you've vindicated that hope these past 8 years. And now I'm ready to pass the baton.
The president has done all he can here. He has been the ultimate character witness. But now it is up to Hillary herself to win over middle America. Tonight, Mrs. Clinton will have the chance to do just that. In a primetime speech of her own, she must win over entrenched critics, those who doubt her honesty and her character. It will be nothing less than her pitch to be America's 45th president. Robert Moore, ITV News, Philadelphia.
And still to come on the ITV Evening News. The children of Syria who've known nothing but war, even when at prayer.
More on Maria's remarkable survival and the rest of the day's news after the break. Join us then.
Welcome back. For 5 years, Syria has been locked in bloody civil war, with yet another tentative peace proposal rejected today. For many children there, it is all that they have ever known, a daily diet of danger and dread. 4-year-old Maria had her latest brush with death as her father was filming her at prayer. Our correspondent Dan Rivers reports on the family on the front line.
At first glance, she looks like any lively 4-year-old. But her smile belies the reality of her life in Syria. Maria lives in Douma, a besieged suburb of Damascus, born into a conflict which intrudes into her world every day. Last Friday, her father tried to calm her by encouraging her to pray as once again jets rumbled overhead, and then this happened. This was the scene outside Maria's home. Somehow Maria survived unhurt, but 9 others were killed and many more hurt, including this boy who sustained serious head wounds. His rescuer, Abu Hisham, knows children like Maria endure relentless, random and cruel violence.
الولد اللي كنت حامله كان في أكثر من إصابة بجسمه بعينه وبراسه من وراه والأولاد اللي حواليه كلهم عايشين برعب يعني مثل الطفلة ماريا كانت يعني كثير عايشة برعب لما ضربت من محيطه.
Although Maria escaped without any physical injuries, psychologically the damage of this conflict grows each day. She now refuses to wear her prayer scarf, associating it with the explosion which so nearly killed her. Her father told ITV News of his fears for his children, but can't risk showing his face.
بالليل وبالنهار اقسم بالله بالليل حتى اي قذيفه بتطلع بتنزل علينا اي قذيفه بتنزل علينا او قريب علينا بتفز الطفله بتبكي بتصرخ صريخ مو طبيعي حتى نهديها شوي مشربها مي ترد ترجع تنام طب نحن بالليل هيك كيف بالنهار.
But every day she wakes up trapped in the same nightmarish life from which there is no escape. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
On to the rest of the day's news, and some train services in England and Wales are now so overcrowded that they are carrying twice the number of passengers that they should be. 6 of the 10 most overcrowded trains were going in and out of London, including the busiest of them all, the 7 a.m. from Brighton to Bedford.
Pope Francis had a stumble today. He missed a step as he approached an open-air altar in Poland. Priests rushed to help the 79-year-old back onto his feet, and he went on to celebrate Mass as planned.
And singer Dame Vera Lynn received her latest honour today. The 99-year-old had an investiture ceremony at her home in Sussex after being made a member of the Order of Companions of Honour by the Queen.
And finally, exactly 4 years ago today, as the country was captivated by the exploits of our athletes at the London Olympics, the young swimmer Jazz Carlin was watching from home after illness robbed her of a place on the squad.
But she is determined to make up for lost time. And not only has she made Britain's team for Brazil, she believes she can bring home a medal too. Our sports correspondent Ian Payne went to meet her as she gets ready for Rio.
Can she do it? 4:01, 4:02, 4:03, 4:04.
Yes!
She's done it!
For Jasmine, or Jazz Carlin as she's known, this swim less than 3 months ago was as important as they get.
And she's going to burst into tears.
And emotional. It meant she'd made it to Rio after failing to qualify in her other 2 events. So it had been her last chance.
I have got a habit of getting quite emotional. It's one of those moments that you wish you could bottle up forever, because it's just that incredible feeling when you've worked so hard for something, you finally get to achieve your dreams.
And to make matters even more intense, she'd already felt the agony of missing out entirely at London 2012 when she was hampered after contracting glandular fever.
I was getting tonsillitis every 2 to 3 weeks, and I would be in bed just sleeping the whole weekend. And so I had a blood test and obviously found out that I did have glandular fever. And I think when you give everything into sport, sometimes illness, injury, it's just out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it.
She may have suffered 4 years ago, but so did her parents.
It was a very traumatic time for all of us, really. I mean, to see your daughter be so devastated, and she was, I think that was more heartbreaking than her not making the team, really. It was just seeing her sort of falling apart in front of your eyes.
But Jazz Carlin does more than just swim. She encourages the future, often finding time to go back to teach the youngsters at her first club, and they adore her for it.
You would think like Lisa would be a little bit of arrogance. There's none. Like, she's really lovely.
She's just so surprising, and you'd have never have thought that she could just swim so fast. Like, she gets in and then she's just like, where is she? And like everyone like follows her.
I feel so lucky to be able to do something every day that I love, and obviously to try and achieve your dreams. I'm just going to give it my best shot, and I think as long as you're doing your best, that's all you can ask for yourself.
And if her best gets her a medal, there'll be few who deserve it more. Ian Payne, ITV News, Bath.
And that's all for now. Tom Bradby's here with news at 10.
But from all of this team, a very good evening to you.
Bye-bye.